Movie studios. You know them. You love them, I guess. Used to be, we had the Big Eight. The Big Eight, Hollywood studios, major traditional Hollywood studios. But for most of my life, it's been the Big Six. And that is Disney, Universal, Warner Brothers, 20th Century Fox, Paramount, and Columbia, aka Sony Pictures. But now, of course, there's only five. There's the Big Five traditional big Hollywood studios, in contrast to Netflix, which is not one of the big traditional Hollywood studios, although it very much is a studio in its own right. But we only have five of the classic studios, and that's because as of 2019, 20th Century Fox disappeared when Disney used the change it found in Bob Iger's couch to purchase Fox, take it into the backyard, put a bullet in the back of its head, and give it an unceremonious death. And dump it into a ditch. And news came out last week that Warner Brothers CEO David Zaslav, he announced he accidentally overvalued his company by about $10 billion. Oops-a-daisy. It happens. I'm sure he's going to suffer the professional consequences and the financial consequences. I'm sure he won't just get big, giant bonuses like all executives do. I bring that up because for years, the writing has been on the wall that Warner Brothers, the whole end game for Warner Brothers is that the current management is going to strip it for parts and then sell it. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. I guess it'll be sold to Universal. That's my guess. But who knows? It's foolish to make these specific predictions. And the specifics are less important than the fact that I think we're going to see more and more mergers in the future. And in like 20 years, I think the entire industry is going to have two, at most three companies, three huge monstrosities that control the industry. You're going to have on one side an unholy merger of Apple and Disney. On the other side, you're going to have Amazon and the remaining studios, and maybe you have Netflix floating in there somewhere. But it's going to happen. That's the way things are going. That's the law of capitalism is you have to just keep getting bigger. And at a certain point, the only way you can get bigger is to combine. All of this is to say, something I will never stop pointing out and complaining about is that the Disney-Fox merger is the worst thing to happen to movies in my lifetime. It has been successful for Disney executives and shareholders, and terrible for everyone else. Terrible for Disney's employees, terrible for Fox's employees, who many of them just lost their jobs. Terrible for the entertainment industry, and terrible for people who love movies and television. But how has this been terrible, you might be asking? And why should I care about it? Aren't these corporations all just faceless, evil entities? Well, yes, of course they are, but that's why it's so important that we don't let them get bigger. We don't let them consolidate power. And on that note, by the way, the federal government could have stopped the Disney-Fox merger. There are antitrust laws on the books that they chose not to enforce at that time. They allowed it to happen. It's dangerous to allow companies to get this big and have this much power over the industry, because what they do is what everyone else has to do. The entire industry pivoted to streaming because Disney pivoted to streaming, and Disney bought Fox so that it would have enough content to fill up its streaming service. Having fewer movie studios is really bad for labor, and it's bad for art. On the labor side, having more prospective movie studios means there's more opportunities for jobs and more opportunities for money. Directors and producers, they have more places to shop their projects. Talented people in the industry, actors, writers, crew people up and down the line, they have more leverage because they have more companies to play against each other. You know, when you have a job, often the only way you can get a raise is to then leave and go to another company for a job. It's very difficult to rise within the job you currently have. When employees are unhappy at one company, if there is another company, or if there are multiple other companies, then they have the ability to go get a better job. When you lose one of those major studios, that's one fewer place to go find work. And ultimately, it means there's just fewer movies being produced. On the art side, what we are seeing is a homogenization of the types of movies that get made. And you saw it in Deadpool and Wolverine. Even people who love this movie say it feels like an MCU movie. The other two Deadpool movies absolutely did not. I think it's nicer when movies by different studios feel different from each other, because we want different options. I mean, there's such a clear house style that Marvel has that it painted all over Deadpool and Wolverine. My wife Lacey liked Deadpool and Wolverine, but she said that it annoyed her that the stakes of the movie had to be so big, especially when you compare it to the first two Deadpool movies. Like, the first Deadpool movie is about Deadpool being ashamed of the the way he looks. And the second Deadpool movie is about Deadpool trying to save a kid. The third Deadpool movie is about him trying to first save a universe and then trying to save all of the universes. And that's because the Marvel style is to only tell stories about the biggest possible things that could happen. It's like they're the embodiment of they are a hammer and every problem is a nail. I don't love the Deadpool movies, but I appreciate how different those first two Deadpool movies are from all the other superhero movies that were getting made at the time. And in 2016, there had not been a superhero movie like Deadpool before at that scale. But just imagine if Disney owned Fox at the time, would they have made a Deadpool movie like that? Would they have made a Deadpool movie that was so foul and so violent? You know the answer. You know, of course they wouldn't. Now they own Deadpool and they make a foul and violent Deadpool movie, but that's because the other studio did it first. People liked it, so now they have to do it too. Similarly, would Disney have allowed James Mangold to make Logan the way he made it? I really don't think so. I don't think the Kevin Feige regime of Marvel would have allowed something as dark as Logan to get produced. But since another studio existed, they made Logan, now Logan exists, and Marvel Studios has to react to it. But where are the future movies like Deadpool and Logan going to come from when it's just one studio that basically controls all of these types of movies? There's another reason you should care about all of this, though, and that's history. I love movie history. I love that movie studios all have a history that goes back 100 years. I love that Fox movies feel different from Disney movies. Warner Brothers movies feel different from Universal movies. I like that all these Fox DVDs that I own, like All About Eve and The Grapes of Wrath and The 7-Year Itch, Sunrise, The Day the Earth Stood Still, I could recognize these across the room. They're all from the Fox Studio Classics line of DVDs. They feel special and classy. And I love that a studio has its own look for its physical media. I like knowing that the same studio that made Avatar and X-Men is the studio that also made The Sound of Music and Star Wars. I think that's neat. I think it's awesome when you watch a movie from the 50s and hear the Fox fanfare, the same fanfare that you will hear in Star Wars. That rules. And I know not everybody cares about stuff like this, but a lot of other people do. And I think that the studios especially care about it. Like Disney calls its event D23 because Disney as a company started in 1923. These companies take their history very, very seriously. So I think it really sucks that Disney bought Fox. The only way 20th Century Fox survives is as a logo and a theme song that Disney can trot out whenever they want to give people a little nostalgia dopamine hit. All of this is to say, when the next studio merger is on the horizon, and it will happen, don't get excited about it. Don't think, oh, it'll be cool that fucking Superman will get to fight the shark from Jaws. Or whatever. Get worried. Complain. Never stop complaining. Be like me and never stop complaining that the Disney-Fox merger is a disaster that should never have been allowed to happen. And one final thing. If you're interested in the history of movie studios, check out this book that I just finished, 20th Century Fox by Scott Amon. It chronicles the history of 20th Century Fox, of the studio, from the 30s all the way to 2019, especially during the classic Hollywood era when it was run by Daryl Zanuck. This is a book that you will like, especially if you like golden era Hollywood history, classic Hollywood era stuff.